Yeah.
Sunday, the name of my message was called A Bump in the Road. A Bump in the Road.
Yep, bump in the road.
Yeah, from probably one of the most encouraging books of the Bible. One of them, at the top of the list would be, Philippians and Ephesians. As far as being encouraged, more like rebuked than Galatians. We need to hear it, but Philippians is one of those, which is where I got the scripture from. I believe it's Philippians 1:6. It says, "He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it." And I always think of, and I don't know about you, Nigel, but I always think of like the big picture a lot of times, and I forget about the little steps in between. Actually, we're opposites. You think about the little steps in between. That's why we're such a good team. But the little steps in between, and the little goals, the little journeys, along the way that God is walking us through. And sometimes when life comes at us really hard, it feels like it's going to just take us out, when in reality it's just kind of a bump in the road, Mm-hmm. And I think it's helpful to kind of remember that scripture too when you're going through things like that, because Paul had experienced a lot of suffering. He was really unique in so many different ways. He was born in Tarsus, which was actually a city where the third most prominent university of the time was in Tarsus. Paul was a Roman citizen, which you had to be born into or paid for. He spoke Greek, and they were devout Jews. And so he studied under this very prominent teacher. And one of the ones at the time, I can't remember, I think it's Gamaliel is the name of the teacher. Yep. And so he just started to get like really passionate about the Jewish religion, and anybody who attacked it in any single way, Paul would just jump out at him. And so Paul had actually done that in Acts chapter 7, I believe, with Stephen. He actually stoned Stephen, this disciple who's just on fire for God. And after he stoned him, well, he didn't personally stone him, but he called for stoning, his life began to change. I really think that got into Paul, because what Stephen said was, the very last words Stephen said were some of the very last words that Jesus said, which is, "Father, forgive them, for they now know not what they do. I commit my life to you." And you would think that under that kind of stress, if something you don't believe in, you're obviously going to abandon it and go to what you really do believe. Stephen never did that, and that really spoke to Paul. And on the road to Damascus, Paul gets this vision of Jesus Christ. He falls off his horse, and later God speaks to another prominent Jewish person who was a Christian to speak to Paul about how to get going in his faith. But they talked from the very beginning, God said, about the sufferings that he must go through. And Paul experienced a ton of suffering. He was shipwrecked, stoned, died, came back to life. Just so many different things that Paul went to. So when Paul speaks that verse, "He who began a good work in you," it comes from a man who experienced a lot of suffering, a man who experienced a lot of bumps along the road.
Right.
And so in life, we're going to have these experiences, these bumps along the road. And I know I talked about a few of my experiences during my sabbatical that were incredibly adventurous, to say the least, where I thought I was heading in one direction, when in reality there was a bump on the road that sent me in another direction, but it was still God and it was still good. Anything you're thinking of when I was sharing that, Nigel?
Not really, not per se.
I think I also think of sports. How many times has we're watching one of our favorite teams, which is usually the Buffalo Bills or Syracuse. I'm not a baseball fan like you, but in everything is going so good, and then boom, something happens and it starts to affect the game, and then hopefully the team bounces back and kind of conquers that. You know what I'm saying? But that too is like a bump in the road. I think of that. Was what really hit me about I'd love to talk sports with you, by the way, because we haven't talked sports. I'm really interested to see where you think the Bills are at. But who was the name of the defensive back, I believe, who died last year on the Bills and came back to life?
Hamlin.
Hamlin. When that happened, the stadium just got quiet. They canceled the rest of the game. That was a huge bump in the road for the Bills, but especially for Hamlin's life. And I'm not sure exactly, but I'm pretty sure, not this past game, but the game before that, I saw the set of downs when Hamlin got put back in. And he almost intercepted the ball on the first play. Second play, he busted through the line off a blitz. almost got the quarterback, and then the third on third down took out a running back, all in the whatever. And I just kept thinking, he hit this huge bump in the road. You would think that would be the end of this guy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No more sports. I mean, he's lucky to be alive, let alone playing sports. And there he is on the field again, just a bump in the road.
Yeah.
It just blows me away. You know, and that God can use these different bumps on the road to kind of help people see God on the inside of us. You know, so I don't know where you guys are at today, but if you're going through a bump in the road, just keep your eyes focused on Christ. He'll lead you through the whole thing, you know. And one thing that is just amazing about God, no matter what you're going through, maybe you're going through something where you're not sure what the end game looks like for you, you know. Maybe it's just something in your health or something in your finances or a relationship that's really difficult right now. Just know that it's just what you're going through will just be a bump in the road. That God's faithful and He's going to take you places and take you farther. Just got to trust in Him and know that He's always there for you. He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. That's for sure.
I would say this about what I've gone through lately with my health is sometimes a bump in the road is necessary.
Yeah.
Because it was like a wake up call for me with my health, like that I should have been taking my water pill, and I was kind of lacking on that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been having so much fluids and I was being a little lazy with my health, and it bit me, like having me go to the hospital and dealing with the things I did.
Yeah.
But now it's a wake-up call. Now I'm taking home meds I'm supposed to take.
Yeah.
Now I'm making adjustments. Now I'm eating better.
Yep.
Now I'm eating smaller portions, not drinking as much during the day.
Yeah.
And maybe without that happening, without that bump in the road, I might have not made the adjustments that I need to make to live longer, and to have longevity and do the right thing, so that I can be effective in continuing to get the gospel out there and let people know that they have a plan through God, and that God has a plan for their life, just like He has a plan for my life. He can have a plan for them, and no matter what the bump is in the road, you just keep going.
Yeah. And it's amazing too, because like I know last year, it was about May, I pulled out my back really bad, and everything stopped. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like everything I was running after, everything I was doing, you know, with my family, with ministry, it stopped, and I had to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? And for me, it was like I wasn't swimming, because swimming's important to me, because I have to keep my core built up. And if I don't, I have back problems. I had stopped swimming. I had gotten a little lazy with my diet. I wasn't really taking care of myself. And it hit me, and I couldn't move for a couple weeks. And I just kept thinking the whole time. And as we get older, that's what happens. Everything just stops like that. When we were younger, we would just bounce right back from stuff, you know. But, you know, so I'm really glad that you're doing better, Nigel. That's for sure, you know.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And I'm glad that bump on the road is helping you along. So I've got a few bumps that are helping me too.
That's for sure.
All right.